social media a waste of time? Michelle and I decided to make this the first chapter of the book because it opens up a really interesting discussion of what are you doing and why are you doing it? Is there any point to it? And when we look at social media, there's so many different purposes that people can use it, right? You can use social media for personal use. There's all sorts of different platforms you can use for personal use. If you're using it for business purposes, then there's also lots of platforms, but also with different kind of purposes and outcomes and objectives, maybe. But the question is really, why do you want to use social media? What do you want to use it for? Obviously, if you don't set out to do anything, it could potentially be a waste of time if you're not sure why you're using it, what you're using it for, but you're spending all day on it at work. Then it might be a waste of time. But if you have a clear conception and idea of what you want to use social media for, and you have kind of strategies, processes, and tactics to achieve those goals, then it's probably not a waste of time. And in some of the other chapters, we talk about how you can look at metrics on social media, how you can look at return on investment. And if you have a particular objective for using social media, whether you want to expose yourself to new customers, whether you want customers to come to your website, whether you want to increase familiarity with your product or your brand, whether you want to communicate information to other people, whether you want to communicate information to kind of your own employees or within your own company, there's all sorts of different purposes. But if you don't have a specific objective defined, then you're a lot more likely to waste time. If you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it, then the actual action of just being on social media is a lot less likely to be effective. Whereas if you can clearly define your objectives, then you can go a long way into making sure you don't waste time. The same is true of staff. If you've got a clear reason for using social media, if you've got a social media policy that is combined with certain objectives for what people are doing, then you're a lot more likely to make sure that people aren't wasting time on social media. The other thing you can do is prescribe use. So say, these are the sort of things you should not be doing on social media. In some of the other chapters, we talk about oversharing information, especially things like confidential information, customer data, all stuff that you should not be posting on social media, publicly or privately. But all sorts of like positive and negative uses of social media in different chapters that talk about whether or not it's a waste of time, whether there's a good return on investment, whether or not it's something you should be doing, whether or not it's something you should be thinking about doing. So we open the chapter up with that question, is it a waste of time? And it really depends, right? Like people can waste time with anything. Give people any sort of technology, distraction, tool, and people will find a way to waste time with it, but other people will find a very effective use for it.